coming to our Lunch and Learn today. Today we welcome Cade, who will speak to us about his work at Revolution Foods. Carl has a distinguished career in working on behalf of the public good, both in the public and private sector. After graduating from Vassar College, he went on to work for LA Unified School District as senior deputy to the school board president. From there, he developed and ran a financing program at the California Charter Schools Association.
And after he received his MBA from Harvard, he went on to work with Westfield LLC in real estate development, and he managed a lot of the construction for mixed urban developments. And now he is the regional vice president of Revolution Foods in the Southern California region. So please let's give a warm welcome for Carl.
Thanks everyone for coming. I'm hoping that we'll definitely have a lot of questions, and so I'm going to try and leave as much time as I can, because I think the work that we do at Revolution Foods sort of goes into a number of different places that students like you might have interest in, and so I want to take it to the place that you're most excited about. Kicking us off, we call ourselves the next generation food company. I think it's really about how what you're going to see today is we're looking at how we can really infect the entire food business, the multi-billion-dollar food business that is aimed solely at school children in the U.S. This is a business that's been around more than 60 years, 70 years in some cases. And so there's a lot of ways that it's gotten to run the way that it does. And we don't think that most of those are the right way. So we're trying to figure out how to change it. Thanks so much for going through my resume. I think what's important to me about sharing this is, it looks like a mess. It doesn't look like I had a plan to the extent that you're thinking about what your path is going to be. On the one hand, I made a lot of different turns, but actually at every point I was actually moving along going towards very similar issues around justice, issues around how do cities work, issues around how to use business ideas in order to deliver, especially school children, but also whole cities, what they want and need. How many in this room right now, how many of you are MBA students? Okay. How many are undergrads of including business undergrads? Okay. And then how many are graduate students or other types of students that are here at USC? Okay, so I'm speaking to pretty much every type of student that there could be. I'm going to try and, as a rule, I really try and speak with as few acronyms as I can, but every industry I find myself in has its own jargon, and so if I start going off, feel free to just, what is NSLP? Kind of things like that. And I think also, as a company, I think it's, for me, my liberal arts undergraduate education, as well, coupled with my business school education, were both incredibly important. Just a note in there, I think Adam Miller, is this right? Adam Miller came to speak to you guys recently. And
he's a Marshall alum.
And he's a Marshall alum. So I actually hired, when I left the Charter Association to go to business school, I actually hired Adam Miller from right out of here in 2005 to replace me, and he's been at the California Charter Schools Association ever since and has grown in that role. And so it's fun to be back and cross paths with him indirectly. We're here to ignite a healthy revolution. The word revolution at times really speaks to people, gets people really excited, and this is exactly what they need. Sometimes I go into meetings and I have to tone that down. Jamie Oliver's done a little bit of work in this town, and so the word revolution with the word food, even though it's not related to us at all, for some people really feels like a unhelpful attack, and for other people it's the breath of fresh air that they need. And so we own it, but we want to be clear that we're here about respecting people throughout the system and helping them change dramatically what they're doing, but not in a way that is disrespectful to those people. So, opportunity and a challenge. Today, we actually, if you look at this lunchroom, this exists throughout the United States today. The National School Lunch Program, NSLP, was created to basically cure hunger in young people around the same time as a lot of the other social programs in the U.S. were created. over time, it's been administered through the USDA, and so there is a lot of politics of exactly why it looks the way it does, why it pushes certain pieces of food. We think that we can create a great meal program that is compliant, that goes through the National School Lunch Program, and in the 6 years since we've been created, we've been able to do that. Today we serve, just now, and I had to update this on a couple slides, you'll see that it's ham-fistedly done in a few places. We're now, as of this month, serving 120,000 meals a day in 6 markets. That's still nothing compared to the 400,000, roughly, meals that LA Unified alone serves every day. But the fact that we're across 6 markets and starting to get inroads into places where people can just know that there's an option is super important. Here you can see our growth trajectory. You can see this graphic wasn't done in time for me to build that 5th bar or 6th bar that shows 120,000. And I haven't rerun the CAGR, but as of last year, we had a CAGR of 108% over 5 years, which I'll tell you is a lot of pressure on your people. It's getting people, finding enough new people to grow, to double every year for 5 years, keeping the people you have feeling like they can go out and do it again. It's just a lot of work. I mean, we love doing it, and we're glad to see that growth. It's certainly helpful with the funding community, but it's a lot of pressure, and it takes a lot of work. This year, I'll get to it later. This year we actually, I'll talk more about where we are later. For those of you not familiar, who didn't grow up eating school lunch in a public school in this country? Did not. None of you. Okay. Well, welcome. How does it look? This is what we're looking at. Now we have baked Cheetos. They're not fried, so that's nice. That's beginning to be in the direction of healthy. I think that this is a chalupa, which before Taco Bell did it, only cafeterias really specialized in this. It's sort of a cheese boat on a fried taco shell kind of thing. And this I'm not sure. I think it's like a bologna sandwich that was made 6 months ago and will last another 6 years if you leave it on. This is what we have gotten to as the normal in public schools across the U.S. There's always been certain places where they're still able to do scratch cooking, where everything else. But the economics of it and of the program have led to this. Highly prepackaged, not that appetizing, not that exciting. And so to give you some ideas of why this is such a problem. First of all, students who actually, backing up, the National School Lunch Program is aimed specifically at high poverty students. So students who qualify according to certain poverty metrics are able to get a completely free lunch, which I know we have some people from Norway. There's a lot of things free in Norway. There's very little that's free in the U.S. government.
But not food at school.
Interesting. Well, good call. Maybe we would have evolved somewhere else if we had not done that. Yeah. So the free lunch program today will give you about $3 per lunch served. So it reimburses the school district about $3. Of that, this type of meal spends about 77 cents on the ingredients. And you have to be really clear, the ingredients, the food itself. Now, that doesn't include the money it takes to make it, and that doesn't include the money it takes to serve it, and that's where, and the serving and the administration is where most of the money goes. We, in our ingredients, we don't give out exact prices, but we're more than double on the ingredient price. And so it means we have to get really smart on what we're going to do, how we're going to pay our employees well in a respectable way, and still be able to deliver it at something about the reimbursement rate. I should say, at this point, our co-founders, Kristen Richmond and Kirsten Toby, were business school students at the Haas School at Berkeley. And they had both been teachers and had backgrounds in education, and they were sort of saying, this ed reform world is very big. There's things that are happening. Teach for America's out there. There's these other for-profit organizations that are out there. There's charter schools. What do we want to do? What's something new? And so thinking a lot about sort of innovation and innovative concepts. I think they came to school food and really found almost nothing. We can talk about who was serving, but this is really most of what we saw. And that had come up mostly responding to the free lunch business. Not a lot of this business was made to actually go to a customer who's going to choose to pay or not pay. So complicated business model, who's your customer, who are you trying to convince, all sorts of fun. Jumping into who we are, where we located ourselves in the market. So today I'll show up at places and people say, you're the organic food place. Well, that's not actually true. Like, we're actually, we use as much organic as we can, but we're not 100% organic. So then they said, okay, well, you're the everything fresh. Well, yeah, everything's fresh, but like there's some ingredients that, sit on a shelf that you put in deal with. So this is where we started getting really clear with people what we are. The other way we did it is we hopped on the back of another brand, that's Whole Foods. Whole Foods had already gotten out there, gotten their name, and people said, I don't know if I'm macrobiotic or organic or if I'm into, slow food or local or whatever it is, but I know if it's at Whole Foods, it's probably okay. More okay. So we said, okay, we're going to use the Whole Foods standard. We're going to say we're only going to use Whole Foods. And that worked for a while. That actually was really helpful. People were like, okay, like you can buy certain things there that don't, meet these. But so this is what we kind of went into. I'm not going to read out everything, but starts with fresh, starts with natural, low sodium, and no preservatives. The other big part of it is it had to be fun. So going back, not a lot of fun. Like, this was our biggest thing is if we're going to actually get out there and make healthy food, it can be all the way over on the spectrum of completely healthy, but we're not actually satisfying the goal of actually getting students to eat it. And so we don't like to go down the road of everything in moderation. We like to be more proactive, because that kind of sounds like you're capitulating, right? We're actually trying to go towards food is fun. So how can we make fun food? I'll tell you this week, we just sampled buffalo wings that we're going to be able to serve that are going to meet our food standards, that are chicken wings in both barbecue sauce and in buffalo sauce that are completely baked, that meet our fat standards, that meet our meat additive standards. And one of my dispatchers, two of my dispatchers said to me, they're like halfway through the wing, still talking to me, and they say, wow, this is not going to fly. And I was like, oh, are they bad? He's like, they're too good. This can't be healthy. We're not going to be allowed to send these to schools. So that's the best thing I can hear, right? Like we've hit it both. We've gotten to the point where it tastes great, kids are going to love it, and no one's going to believe it's healthy. That's where we want to be. It's all about fun. It's all about understandable standards and things that students can take forward with them. Food pictures. See, I knew I could find some. This gives you an idea of something that we serve every week, almost every day. It's a boneless, skinless turkey breast. Again, Diestel Farms is really the #1 supplier of turkey to your local Whole Foods. We get it straight from the turkey ranch right here in Sonora, California. It's a 51% whole wheat bun. So again, purists among us, it's not 100%. We were with 100%, they wouldn't eat it. All natural but reduced fat. This is one of the places where, again, we don't do diet food, we don't do fake food, we don't do a lot of different weird additives, but we do, with the cheese, work on actually having cheeses with reduced fat, and none of the complicated acronyms or high fructose corn syrup are in it. Looking here, you can see a comparison of this meal to the competition. Guess what? More calories. It's not all about low cal, right? In fact, to be in the National School Lunch Program, we actually have to make sure we're hitting enough calories. We have to serve between 750 and 900 calories for a high school lunch. Saturated fat's lower, total fat's lower, calories per fat is lower, and sodium's lower. But we're still more here. The other thing that's huge is 21 ingredients versus 51. Those 21 are mostly in the bun. That's turkey. That's the ingredient. There's no fillers or plumping or different stuff like that. Again, looking at the food that we serve, this idea of delicious, variety, real, home style, right size, balanced, organic, never ever. everyone keys into different things. Somebody came in to meet with me the other day and said, I'm pretty sure that 50% of our students are gluten-free. I don't think that's probably true, but are gluten-free. The celiac disease have a specific kind of an allergy to protein in wheat. I have never heard that that's statistically possible, but people are going to, key into their different things. And so we have to be able to, as our business, as a provider, a lot of what we're providing is kind of helping people make those good choices with the food that we provide. Service, the bottom part, we're at least as much of a service business. Again, this is actually, you got to have food that tastes good, but this is how I lose and gain accounts. Since the start of school, I got 6 new accounts. I have 100 right now. I got 6 accounts, 6 schools off of the competition because they weren't doing this. They weren't showing up one time. Wow, none of your kids ate. They only had one item, so nobody likes whatever it is. They won't do it either in an individual or a family, and this is a big one, they don't have enough service support. These are all big things that we had to figure out. We also have folded into it an education component. That was twofold. Partly we said, wow, if we're out there to change the way students are eating, we actually need to get in front of them and talk to them about it. We don't just drop off the food. That was sort of like I think when you're doing social entrepreneurship and when you're creating your company, there's like the feel-good things that you want to do, but you don't know why. And then there's the things that you can make a rational business case for them. I think over time, hopefully those become the same things. I think there's this real question of, for me, I go up in competition against, and we'll look at our competition later, but I go up in competition against somebody who pays absolute minimum wage, maybe lower. And I'm sitting there bidding against him on bids, and I can't get down to the price that he can bid. And so I'm sitting there going, I'm so glad, as a person, as an individual, that I am paying my workers well, that I'm giving them health benefits, that I'm giving them stock in the company. But, what is the rational justification as a fiduciary that I can make to our stockholders for why I'm paying them in this economy when I know I can get people for less? Couple things. I think one of those things that we figured out in that case is that I needed to be able, if our whole goal is to change the way that American schools eat breakfast, I needed to be able to say that we had an ironclad, positive labor record to ever talk to a school district for a second. And if I didn't, and this competitor is never going to serve a school district, right? He doesn't want, he's a one-off, he's a cook. Basically, he started out of the back of his kitchen of his restaurant. He's already making more money than he ever expected. But for me, I want to go talk to LA Unified. I want to go talk to DC Public Schools, who we now serve 1/4 of their students every day. I wanted to go do all that, and so I said, yeah, that's the reason. We need to start from an ironclad, solid labor story in the first place. And by the way, that's also why I wanted to work there, because I don't want to be in the business of exploiting people. I think the other place where this comes in terms of our education is when you're introducing brown rice and stir fry and a teriyaki to a very picky 7 or 8-year-old, you can't just drop it off and expect them to eat it. You actually have to go out there with tastes beforehand and get them really excited about it and get them to try something that they never were going to try before. Get them to try bok choy. We do it. Get them to try cabbage in their taco, which took me a while. But those are things that get them excited, get them to know what a whole wheat tortilla is. These are big things for already picky young people. In terms of school experience, we are one of the biggest issues is actually at the middle to secondary level. So we're actually pushing a lot of branding out there. We haven't done a lot of formal advertising. We haven't done any formal advertising. It's really been free media, PR, things like that, working with our school partners. What you're seeing here is a new branding for the company, which is where we're going. And I don't have any of you guys who have my business cards. What we've had up until now is like happy apples and trees and whatever. This is an evolution into secondary, right? So secondary, almost what works in elementary grades is almost what doesn't work in secondary grades. Right here, and so actually here's a great case. This is our classic branding. Works really well with elementary school, right? This is secondary, right? And so we're starting to say, because the biggest crisis that I'm seeing right now is in secondary, which is where you had at LA Unified, of the 80 high schools now in LA Unified, something like that. They have, on average, 70 to 80% free and reduced lunch qualifying students. Students who are poor. Students who the government is saying, we care so much, we'll pay for a free lunch, a free breakfast, a free snack, and now maybe even a free supper through different programs. These students have a participation rate at lunch, which is the highest of all of them, between 10 and 30%. So that means you have students who could use the meal who are electing not to take the meal at a place that they already are in front of everyone else is also in the same boat as them. Again, there's this history of stigma around accepting free handouts. In these schools, they continue to refer to meals as freebie meals, right? So it's like, oh, well, you must be poor if you go in that line. Well, we're all poor, so why don't we all go in the line, right? So I think that tells you like how bad a job the whole industry of school lunches has done around branding, about getting people excited. And who's done that well? Flaming Hot Cheetos, right? Like, so if you see anything there that is, and that's what their lunch is right now. I mean, that is lunch, is a super bag of Flaming Hot Cheetos. You know, it's not uncommon.
Nacho cheese on top.
With nacho cheese added in, right? It is too. You can get that in the extra cup. And I'm skipping around a bit, and I'm going to come back to some of the stuff that we talked about. This is actually a new platform we're looking at, which is going to be healthy vending machines that we will do similar in some ways to the contracts that school districts have done to support their athletic programs for years with soda machines, with Coke and Pepsi. We're looking at doing something like this, where we can put healthy food. This is an example of our branded products line that we do sell through Whole Foods and Toys R Us and Target. We're just getting into Safeway and Vons and stuff like that. What our partners say, I mean, that's great. I'm going to jump through that. They're great. They love us. Obama's chef, if you go down halfway through, Obama's chef loves us. That's great. There's a student in D.C. that really likes us. I think in terms of impact, this, I can make available to you. I think what's really important for the schools we do serve is, and the ones where we have a great partnership, is getting them to see. Let me back up. I went from the district side, and in 2002, Marlene Cantor, who I think you guys know, who you know, was at the board, and she brought the soda ban as the new thing. And we were all like, yeah, we don't want kids drinking soda, but is that our first thing? Is that the thing we need to, isn't it reading or a place to sit down that we have to worry about? And I think there was this point of looking at the school district, and you'd watch the board meetings or, be at the board meetings, and they would spend all of their time on things that weren't teaching or learning, right? Burrito contracts were actually a big part of what they talked about. School bus, clean diesel or not, all good things, but not teaching and learning, not core thing. And so for us, when I first came into this company, I think it was really important to look and see that the company was being set up, knowing that we couldn't be the school's first priority, right? We can't be. They need to focus on teaching and learning. But setting ourselves up in a way that we can be an easy and obvious support to everything else that they're doing. I still am having to, and so some of the quotes you see here is showing exactly how that works with great partners. So, they're still focused mostly on that other stuff, and once a month they check in with us, everything's working great, good, moving on. And so I think that's really important when you're setting up a business that's important to you, figuring out how to do it in a way that you can get customers and speak to them where they are. Commitment to the environment, I think this is the stuff we're trying to do a lot of, and we are making great strides for. I think this is something that is also critical to a lot of our customers, and so we've been able to justify that investment. Employees, I touched on this briefly. I think it's a great thing to be able to do, and it's going to mean we can grow to a scale that we otherwise wouldn't be able to. Jumping in regions, we started in Northern California out of Oakland. If you remember that step-up slide, it was 1,000 meals that first year in Oakland. Southern California was the second market. That was 4 years ago. And then after that, Denver and D.C., who are both over 2 years old now. And then this year, we just launched Houston and New York, New Jersey. That's where we are. We are certainly planning to continue to grow pretty dramatically, trying to add a region or 2 or 3 per year, and just trying to figure out, frankly, the logistics of how you keep doing that. In this market, so I run Southern California, and I have a slide about this, but I actually was lending out critical members of my team all summer to Houston, to D.C., to New York, New Jersey, as people to both train and to actually just fill in as, we can't find a dispatcher yet. Can we have your dispatcher for a month because we don't know how to get the trucks to the schools in Houston, stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of learning that we've done in terms of just how you scale quickly in a way that's sustainable. So this is some of the stuff that we kind of talked about. I think in terms of just really quickly going into the customer segments. And I'll speak right now about Southern California. In Southern California, we do between 20 and 25,000 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and snack, trying to get into supper. We live and we started in the customer world of startup charter schools. There was a real reason we did that. They're mission driven. They can easily see how this plugs into everything else they're trying to do when they create their new school. B, they are flexible. They're usually not locked into anything. C, they actually had complex needs that made it hard for the incumbents to serve. So the classic startup charter school, I don't know how many people, does anybody have questions about what charter schools are? That is a great thing. So I think the classic startup charter school starts in a church basement, synagogue basement, temple basement, community center. And so they get the space for part of the time. They don't have a kitchen. They don't have a gas line or a 220 electrical line. And so we were able to create a business model that served them really well. It basically is a reasonably priced piece of warming oven, piece of equipment the size of a small refrigerator that is on wheels that you can plug into a regular outlet that we can deliver our food straight into on every morning. So they were great. That's our start. Then there's the private school and preschool, and those are great too. To be clear, we started our model around creating access to great ingredients for communities that don't have access. So, the private schools are great. I love them, and in some ways, having them around is great because it keeps us honest. It means that those schools are actually picking us when they could pay for something else. Our price points around $305, $308, something like that. These are schools that could easily pay $6, and often they come to us having paid $5 or $6. So they love our quality. They keep us honest. They make sure the food still tastes good. Although you'd be surprised, everyone feels entitled to be a critic. Then there are the large conversion charter schools. In LA Unified, there's a lot of these district schools that have been around a long time in LA. They're also very large ones. And they have decided to become charter schools and achieve autonomy from the district. Those right now are largely still served either directly by the district or by Sodexo, or by Chartwells, or by Aramark, or by any of those sort of big traditional food management companies. Small school districts. It is what it says. They have specific needs. They have more flexibility in a lot of ways because they're talking about 7 or 8 schools, and so that's another kind of place to get in. And then large school districts. Our biggest example there that we've served is DC Public Schools. We've got about a quarter of their schools right now. Very positive relationship. I think for us, I think that's an exciting thing. But to be clear, I can't go serve all of LA Unified right now. That's the large school districts are just a special thing. I think there's a lot we can do looking at how to partner with them, how to take what we are good at and kind of add to what they're doing. LA Unified's doing some really great stuff right now. I don't know if you've seen it in the press. It's really just this new school year in the last month that they've launched an incredibly new menu. And so I think we're super excited about that and still looking at how we can add to that. Competitors. School districts. Number one competitor. They're traditionally, I mean, in the old days, there was somebody who actually made food, like cooked it and made it. You have to be really precise with these terms. Like people say, oh, well, my food's cooked on site. Well, no, it's warmed on site, microwaved on site, but it's made on site. So for us, we make all of our ingredients fresh within 24 hours at a centralized culinary facility. Districts started out making them at every school. They have mostly moved to very little scratch cooking on sites, and they do a lot at their central facility. A great field trip for you guys would be the Newman Nutritional Center here at LA Unified, where they make all the food. It's not far. And so that's the largest one. There's certain big school districts especially that have achieved such scale that they're just looking at how do they add even other customers, because they've already have the sunk cost of that big nutritional center, and doing another 20,000 meals is nothing. San Diego's a little bit like that. Entrepreneurial. So large food management companies. This is Sodexo, Aramark, Chartwell's are the three big ones. Sodexo is big here. Aramark's big in other things. Sodexo's big here in schools. They can do. Let me be clear. They can do the nicest food you will ever taste, and they may do something here. They can do amazing food, and they can do very low end. You go to them, you price what you say. Okay, I want to be at this price point, and they're like, well, this is what I can do there. Very different business. It's more managing people and contracts. That's the business. We are not that way. We don't have a silver, gold, platinum level meal. The same thing that I serve to the Boys and Girls Club in Malibu, I serve to Huntington Park. I serve to schools half mile east of here in South LA. That's our whole idea, is having the same meal and making sure it's good. Let me be clear, we compete against every one of these, by the way. So it's weird in terms, thinking about like Porter's Five Forces or anything like your competitive landscape. Like, it's weird to be competing against such different business models all at the same time. Entrepreneurial school catering companies. This is where a guy has a kitchen, knows a couple schools. They start out. He starts growing. That's a lower price option that is very big here in LA. There's probably 4 or 5 big companies that have gotten relatively big, but are these entrepreneurial companies that just want to serve charters or private schools or whatever. And then finally, the boutique school caterers. They're kind of like the entrepreneurials, but they're at the $5 price point. They're the ones who you pay extra money, so they write your kid's name in cursive on the top of their meal, and so, they feel like, here's your cookie, Johnny. And so we compete with them too, like in certain places. And I have to always be really clear when I'm dealing with someone who's come from that or who's also considering that it's a different platform. Like, I'm a $3.10, $3.15 meal here. That's a $5.50 meal. But in terms of long-term growth, there's a very low potential growth in that area, right? Like, that's, and I'll tell you the issue for going into boutique, because we always feel like, well, we could just make this one accommodation, right? We can do this one thing extra that they're asking. Most of it's not food quality. Most of it is the signature on the front. It's can I order like 5 minutes before the student's going to eat it? Can I, it's things that are logistical. And what we've learned really quickly is that, all your operations management classes, when we start going into that level of customization, we quickly lose money. And so even if we doubled our, even if we were able to double our price point, it quickly becomes uneconomical to serve those. It's also a small number of lunches at a given meal. Your more affluent private or even affluent public schools, you'd be surprised how low the participation rate is, how low the number of students that are actually buying or eating lunch are. And so if I'm making a drop for 20 kids, I can't charge, even if I charge $10, it'd be hard, So, in terms of our market, I run Southern California. this is our structure. It's actually came out sort of okay. These ones are really hard to read. This is how our market's set up. I'm the head of the market, run the whole P&L. I have 3 directors. This person's actually a director for me. One is partnership development. That means sales. One is school relationships. That's customer service. And one is operations, and that's everything else. Basically, everything in the 4 walls of my culinary center and everything about getting the drivers getting the food every day to the school. These are our school account managers. We call them SAMs, school account managers. And they each have a load of around 15 to 20 schools that they are giving nutrition ed to, that they are also being a customer service provider to. So they're making sure the meal orders go in right. They're calling them back. This is all, in my world, this is all retention. This is all, they stay with us next year. This is, we figure out ways to get them to get more students eating so that I have a better, more internal sales, all that kind of stuff. You can't see here, this is a purchaser buyer. This is our production manager who runs the kitchen. This is our dispatch manager that runs the driver. Within that, there's probably about 20 people under this in my market, and there's probably about 70 people under this in my market. And so here's one of our meals. I think for me, what we're learning is it is doable. You can solve the problem. I think we're learning that our customer base is all over the place in terms of the degree to which they've made this a priority, and that we've already gotten out to the ones that already have this as a priority, and we need to start working on the ones that kind of think it's a nice to have, but haven't yet made it enough of a priority to pick us. And I think we're learning that districts are definitely starting to see this as a priority and are starting to get there on the need to do it. I haven't said everything about kind of how we grew to this, and so if you want to ask specific questions on like how we got here or what keeps me up at night or stuff like that, have a way at that. So. In the back.
Well, you mentioned that you're planning on maybe partnering with LAUSD. How do you plan on doing that?
Yeah, and I should be clear. I know I'm on tape. We are, I think we're having conversations there about all different ways that we can possibly do that. In other districts, we have a number of different platforms. I think with them, the point is for them, I think our whole thing is they're working really hard. They've made some really big strides, and our goal is not, and they are so big that even a small pilot with us would be a drop in the bucket, and just a part of a larger movement. And so I think when you're talking to districts, it's really important for them to not feel like, frankly, that you're coming in to revolt against them. And for them to see that they have a place in being a part of the better future, because everyone you're dealing with has been sitting there wanting to be a part of serving better food forever. And so I think that is there's just a mutual respect that you have to walk in the door with that it can be easy to forget.
Do you see any ways we can maybe do smaller steps though to make the whole?
Yeah, I do, and I don't want to talk about it on camera. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'm thinking about ideas, and it's all up to them.
I don't think it's actually recording, by the way. I know that. Were you looking the red light was flashing?
Maybe it's not recording, but
It's okay, we're recording. You don't have to say anything.
No. But you get my point.
You guys are
not making you want to say.
Yeah. Well,
it shouldn't be unless you guys turned it on.
Yeah, we have our own special recording devices. But you're also welcome to speak to Carl privately for a few minutes afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you talked about how so much of the cost is in service, and you see Fresh and Easy, who's now doing a lot of things to try and reduce costs in organic foods. Do you find that the school districts are asking you to help them reduce those service costs, or do you find that if you're able to maybe create a solution in customizing or automating a lot of those things, that you'd be able to gain more customers?
The quick answer is yes, but the yes is there's a million different problems that people have. So We're able to pay our workers well because the whole time they're with us, they're working, and my people work really hard. I think that's the part where you're able to make the formula work, and I think that can be applied to a lot of different things.
So, I mean, how does that, like, for you, how do you create a competitive advantage to compete against school districts who are serving themselves like LAUSD? I mean, it seems like there's
there's no competitive. There's not competitive advantage if it's only a price decision, right? Like I'm just not. It's going to be a while till I'm as big as them, and even then, I'm going to want to spend twice as much on ingredients. So, yeah, it can't be a commodity decision.
When you were talking about you also come in and educate the students, does that ever turn counts off because you're asking to also take their?
Yeah, we don't do it. No, yes, good question. No, yeah, we say to them, we'd like to come in. This is priced in. The one thing they will do to us is they'll say, how about you don't do nutrition education for us and then give us a lower price? We don't do that. But really we work with them to figure out things that are age appropriate. So at the pre-K schools, the early ed centers that we serve, we're not talking to them about diglycerides or whatever. And so that is the thing. I think we tailor it around them. They're educators and they love to see what someone else is doing. And so we actually have created a library of our own lessons, and we use those in varying rotations. But we also will go back to them and say, hey, let's put one together. Let's do a new one with you that we can create together that works for your students that we can start applying to other places. I'll come over to that side in a minute. But
I'm a public policy student. I'm a business student, so I was just curious if there's any staff or branch of Revolution Foods that works on sort of advocating or pushing for policies either at the national school lunch program level or in local or school district levels that would be more advantageous for getting better food into the school lunch program or
that's a part of what I do every day, right? So and the people who've actually come into my counterparts in the other 5 markets have a real range of credentials and resumes. My counterpart who runs Northern California just came from founding and running her own nonprofit called the Youth Leadership Institute in Northern California that she ran for 20 years. And so she comes from very much a public policy point of view, and that's a lot of what I'm doing. Am I selling or am I advocating for policy change, right? It's, in the eye of the beholder. I think right now we haven't created pure advocacy roles. Most of the places where we're doing advocacy, it's either our leaders, our founders, our regional heads, or our doing that advocacy. Kristen Richmond, our founder, sits on the White House Advisory Committee on this stuff. But I think there's a question long term. We also do it through partnership. The mayor has a great food policy council here in town that we are integrating it into, and so that's a lot of it.
I was going back to the educational aspect of your services. I was really curious if you incorporate, given the children that you're opting giving these lunches to, and that they tend to, especially here in LA, impoverished likely means that you're overweight, obese, diabetes type 2.
Yeah.
And I was just curious if you incorporated that into your educational program.
Yeah, you mean who the audience is and having them be part of it. Yeah, that's absolutely. You can't do this work without it. And let me say a couple things. I think we're in this weird bipolar place in the U.S. right now where we, on the one hand, are let's be honest, we're dealing with anorexia and obesity as major crises at the same time. And so I think when you're doing this work, you really need to be speaking about healthy living in a way that is, first of all, not attacking individuals, that's talking about great habits, that's not saying that the way your body might be shaped is necessarily an indication of whether you're having a healthy life or not. And I think, especially in a school setting where there's so many issues of bullying and whatnot, I think you need to just set the tone from exactly the right point at the beginning. I have been incredibly impressed, given how many for-profit, nonprofit, everything that organizations that are playing in the space that are too far in both directions, not talking at all about obesity or blaming people like Biggest Loser kind of stuff, on the other end. I think, I'm pretty impressed with the team that we have and the line that they walk with that. Yeah, but good question.
You were talking about like the 70% of kids that get the food subsidies, and then at most only 30% of them.
Right, and that's at the high school level, I should say.
Okay, at the high school, and only 30% at most actually take advantage of that.
Right.
So like in my mind, I assume that they're eating probably the same types of foods at home since they come from an impoverished background.
Sure.
So do you think that by offering them better food at school, they're actually gonna go and like start eating at lunchtime, or like what is your feeling on that?
Well, I think we don't know what they eat at home, and I think there's a real variety of what they're eating at home, and there's also that big mystery, which is the in-between school and home hours that high school students have. I think that the issue for the lunches is both that they are not healthy and they're not tasty, right? Like, it's not like they taste great, but it's not like they taste great. Well, there's an example. LUSD has an excellent coffee cake that I haven't figured out how to make in a healthy way. But if there's anybody here from LA Unified, that is the one thing that it tastes amazing. And I will get it. And always has. They've got a new menu that's great too, but forever they've had great coffee cake. There's restaurants in El Sereno that actually have pirated the recipe and will sell it to you on the black market. I think that the issue is this doesn't taste good and isn't healthy, and so we're losing on both counts. We want to win on both counts, so that makes our job doubly difficult. But I think in terms of what they're eating at home, there are a lot of questions there. Certainly for younger students, we do a lot of work with parents. So we do a lot of like cooking demonstrations, nutrition. A lot of what the school account managers are doing is actually has the parents there. Part of that is actually to speak directly to the parent, and part of that is so the parents don't feel like, what are you trying to feed my child? Like they feel they should be a part of that, right? Like we don't want to do something secret from them, or give them messages that they don't agree with. Give their kids messages that they don't agree with. Anything on this side of the room? Okay, I'll start over there.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed is like with social entrepreneurship, just doing good is not good enough.
No.
You have to
Right.
exceed expectations. Do you think there's any part of your company that you wish you could do better, or you could
Every part.
Like, could you give some examples? Just like what is do you think Revolution Foods is the solution, or is there more to it?
I mean, I think we very much have a constantly obsessive culture about constantly improving. So my head is spinning about which part is most or whatever. I think that this year was the first year for many of our schools that are of a certain scale that we were able to get down to a charge that was equal to or close to the reimbursement rate from the federal government. I think that was an incredibly important win, so that we weren't in a position of asking schools to augment their program with money that was meant for education or dedicated to instruction. I think that's the biggest one. I think also just growing in the same way, and I think that's applicable to every entrepreneurial business that has that initial success. I think we're standing at when you stand at 6 years, I mean, you're past that, like, is it going to exist? Does it work kind of place? And now you're like, can we keep growing like this? Like, is that rational? And I think we need to and want to keep growing like this. We just need to figure out a way to do it that is a way that feels like we can sustain. Sorry.
I was just wondering how often the school account managers actually do things on campus, like you mentioned, cooking demonstrations and library lessons.
Yeah.
How often are you actually going?
Yeah. So we commit to doing it up to once a month, and that's with multiple classes and stuff like that. It's not like 5 kids once a month. Primarily the issue of the limitation is on the school side. There's such a competition for instructional minutes with students that somebody else talked about. that it's often more the school's issue. We have yet to have a case where the school's asking for more nutrition than we can supply.
So I'm not that familiar with all the options in terms of lunch, but is there any issue with students not eating at all because of the stuff that you guys provide? Maybe not being familiar with them, or?
Yeah, no, that's an issue. I mean, especially with younger students, where you have the case of like, I don't want whatever it is. I think we do. So one of the things I didn't talk about, our model, because we want to have a efficient system. We don't do a lot of one-offs. What we do is, to everyone, we offer 8 options a day, in terms for lunch especially. So really, if between those 8 options we're not fine, and those range from very classic, a natural hamburger, all the way down to some, hummus wrap. So if a significant number of students, there's always going to be 1 or 2 students who just, but if any significant percentage of the students are just not eating because they are not interested in what we're providing, then usually it's an issue of working with the school to say, gosh, you're ordering 100 hummus wraps. We usually find 5 people really want those, and the other 80 want something, or the other 95 want something else. So that's the best way.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the other services that you provide, including the lunchbox system? And then, again, elaborate a little bit more about the vending machines.
Sure. So when we started, we actually worked with Nest Collective, who is has a suite of brands who does our branded product system. We sell those through, those are the mashups, the pop-alongs, a couple other things. They all have our name on it. They have our branding. And we get a fee off of that. It's a great business in terms of kind of getting our name out there. There's been some great food we've been able to make with them, and those are things that go into students' lunch boxes, even if we don't have the contract to do it. They are, and some of them are really good. The apple pop-alongs I am a little bit addicted to. But the idea is we get a percentage off of that, and we can throw that into a business in a way that's simple. The idea with the vending machine is getting just into places that may somebody asked about the district, like that may be something we can do with LA Unified, where we're not competing with them, and we can actually go in and do that. So. Oh wait, over here.
As a leader at this company, what is your vision for both the company and the school lunch program in the United States in 5, 10, 20 years from now?
Sure.
Where would you like to see it?
20 is hard to think about right now when you're growing this fast. I'll just be honest. 5 makes, I can think about 5. We've got probably a list of 20 markets that we have some idea of how to serve. We need to perfect the model of how to serve smaller population densities. And so I think that's one that we need to work on. It's like, okay, we're going to go to some other of the really big cities that we aren't yet serving. But then, how do you serve a triangle of Wichita, Kansas, and the other 3 big, in Kansas City and something else? Our financial model is made for sort of having a big population that I can deal with.
I want to thank you for last.
Yeah, no, I know we're coming up on.
I know we have something else to do, but I want to say that is a very good motivation for choosing maybe your product. I like the way you put it.
Great. We worked on making that, so I'm glad to hear it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
But it's a different view about what's healthy or not, because we put down the level of the fat, but we embrace the sugar.
Right. Yep.
So we grow bigger and bigger, because in my head, the grace is, the fat is good for the children.
Right.
And
it's
the
the right
carbon
fat.
proceeded, and the sugar is not healthy at all, and they grow bigger.
Right.
Yeah.
There's multiple issues that we need to address, and so if we go after only one, if it's just one, then we're going to have problems. Yeah.
Because when I grew up also, it was popular to give children low-fat milk.
Right.
Then they found out that they need fat.
Right, exactly. Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much. How are we on? Okay. I haven't had one from
How do you go about varying the meals? I mean, do you worry about geographically where ingredients are available and sort of like cultural issues when you're serving meals in certain regions and kind of, or even like age level in terms of differences in taste from like elementary to high school?
Menus are set at the market level. So my market has perfected a tamale that has absolutely no lard in it, but tastes amazing. And that's our number one seller. And so there are other markets. I mean, increasingly, let's be honest, most of America is starting to have a sizable Mexican population, and so we're starting to get New Jersey. So like, what about that tamale? How's that going? But I'll tell you that the chicken wing was perfected in Washington, D.C., and it was just a demand from Washington, D.C. of, you've got to figure this out. Now, my largely Mexican-American population loves chicken wings too, so we're going to pick that up. There's just things that we are rotating more than others, but the menus are decided on a monthly basis by market, and so that's they're perfected. And our test kitchen is in Northern California, is in Oakland, but they're coming here. We're taking them to restaurants. We're telling them, how do you make this coffee cake, because it's amazing, and they're always coming up with new things. We're trying out pozole next week. Like, I don't know how that's going to go. I haven't tasted it yet, but I'm excited. I haven't gotten one from you.
I was wondering if you guys thought about going into other markets, like, since you say that these things taste so great, like selling it to the general population.
Sure. The main way we've done it, and it's not the same food, it's more like lunchbox kind of items that we've done, has been through the branded products. I think there is always been this idea of, why aren't you serving, and then fill in blank, here's some other whatever. We have been fairly disciplined to stay in school lunch space, just because there's so much still to do there, and we want to kind of focus. And so that's where we are for now. There's a few places that we do we do Meals on Wheels in Northern California. We do some senior centers because they're actually through similar programs. But I think you have to remember, when we start talking to different age groups, different customer segments, we probably are going to start getting demands for totally different flavor profiles. Thinking about salt, thinking about butter, thinking about how much hot sauce you want on something. That's completely different in the senior market, even if we're serving the same culture of people. Thank you so much, and I'll be around at